I think we expect a lot out of ourselves that is often unrealistic. And so I've definitely shifted how I think about that and how I think about the to-do list and whether or not I'm getting everything on the to-do list done all the time. And I think a lot of it too was acknowledging that I can't do everything all at once. And that I think takes a little bit of time to recognize and figure out what it is that you want or need to be doing and what you can put aside for a little while. You do kind of go back and forth on that. You can't be juggling all those balls at once. It's definitely a hindrance from running quickly, but it's a good thing to recognize early on and to just sit in and be comfortable with.
Hello and welcome to Day One Diaries, the podcast where we have honest conversations with people building a business after corporate life. In this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Ceysa McKechnie. Ceysa is the founder of a company called Empower. They help organizations build effective and resilient DEI strategies. In this conversation, we talk about how Ceysa intentionally networks and collaborates with people who genuinely care about the same things that she does. But the thing that stood out to me from this conversation was her perspective on redefining success after corporate life. What does it mean to really get out of the constant productivity and performance loops? How difficult that transition can be? And what it really means to build a business and a life that matches your capacity, your health, and those around you. This is a really thoughtful, honest conversation about what it means to build a business. And remember, folks, if you like this content, hit subscribe and get the latest episodes of Day One Diaries as soon as they come out. Ceysa, welcome. Good to have you
Thank
here.
you. Thank you very much.
If you wouldn't mind, do you want to start us off by giving a little bit of an intro into yourself, your name, how to pronounce it, where you are, and your business as well?
Absolutely. So my name, Sasha, Ceysa, but phonetically it'd be Saysha. I like to caveat that's a bit of a weird one. McKechnie is my surname. I am based in Edinburgh, Scotland. Despite the American accent, I've been in the UK for about 10 years now. And I just got my UK citizenship yesterday, which was very exciting. So that's
Congratulations.
been quite nice. And my business, I do a handful of things actually. I have a portfolio career of sorts. So I run my own business, which
Mm.
focuses on supporting organizations to build out successful, resilient employee networks. And that's really about helping not only the organizations to find value in those networks, but also in the individuals who are volunteering their time on top of already demanding day jobs to really have impact and to gain something themselves out of that experience as well. So that's the primary program that my business runs. We also do a bit of consultancy in the diversity, equity, inclusion space and in the business strategy space. So, how do you pair DEI and business strategy rather than thinking about DEI specifically as an HR function? It's really about how do you build it into the DNA of organizations. And I do a lot of work with small businesses and social enterprises who are trying to figure out how to build that from the ground up, which is quite fun. In addition
Nice.
to that, I am the managing director of a company called Studio Lutalica. They are a design agency, so web design, branding, things like that, that focuses on supporting queer and women owned businesses. They're based in Scotland, but they work internationally as well.
Let's take a step back because I want to focus on your current businesses and how they're going in a little
Mhm.
bit. But let's take a step back. Before you started the Empower business or started working in the studio, what was your day job?
Ah, so before I launched Empower, which is my business, I was working for Amazon. So I had a range of roles at Amazon. I worked there for 6 years, but my last role for the last few years was managing diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy across the UK. So that was looking at all corporate offices, warehouses. You're talking 75 to 80,000 employees, give or take, depending on the time of year, and really understanding how their experiences intersected with the DEI agenda and strategies that we had.
Wow. And how did you or what brought you into the DEI space in originally?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Um, when I got hired into Amazon, it was off the back of an MBA. And when you get hired into their MBA program, you just get thrown into a role. You don't get a say in what you're applying for or anything. It's just you go wherever they need heads. So I started my time at Amazon in the advertising side of the business, managing a team of analytics consultants. I didn't really know anything about analytics or consultancy at the time, but you figure it out. And that's kind of a sink or swim environment. And that's what they intend to be. But one of the nice things about working at Amazon is that you can move horizontally quite a bit. It's hard to move up, but it's pretty easy to move horizontally. So I did a few different things, had a few different roles. I was a product manager, and that's what brought me up to Edinburgh because I was in London before that. Um, and I was in the product manager role and I was doing work with the DEI committee, which is just volunteer work in that office. And that's what really got me into the DEI space within a corporate organization. So I'm queer myself, and I sit within a really interesting intersection, I think, of privilege and non privilege. So I'm white, which is a privileged space. I'm a woman, which is a less privileged space. I'm queer, which is a less privileged space, but I also appear straight to most people. And so I don't walk around every day with that initial visual stigma that people who look queer, quote unquote, would have. And I think that's the understanding of that has given me a really interesting perspective on the concept of privilege and power and how we play with each other without even realizing it within society based off of those initial impressions that are always so visual. And we look at visual components as the main aspects of diversity, which they really are not. They should not be. But they inherently are because that's what we see. And so those are our initial first impressions, and they build into all these different unconscious biases that we have. What I've tried to do with that is acknowledge that I don't understand a lot of people's experience. I don't understand what it is to walk around every day and have those stigmas put against you because of the way that you look, other than being a woman. Um, there are a lot of things that I won't inherently understand, and I need to appreciate and recognize that I don't understand those and allow other people to speak to those experiences and to sit and listen to them, even if sometimes those conversations feel uncomfortable. But I also have a lot of power in and privilege in the space that I sit in. I'm well educated. I come from a middle class background. And so I have these opportunities that I can do something good with. And I think that's really where I've come out of with wanting to be involved in the LGBTQ plus space, in spaces for women, in spaces for trans people, in spaces for neurodiverse people. It's because I recognize that I have a seat of relative privilege and therefore relative power. And I can leverage that seat for something beneficial in building awareness, in helping others, in achieving whatever their dreams are, or building educational opportunities. There's so much that I can do. And even in just giving other people a voice that may not have that same seat of privilege. I've always been in the space in some degree, but it wasn't until I really worked in that committee that I understood how it formally intersected with business strategies. Um, and at that point, I decided that I wanted to do a little bit of a career shift and that I really wanted to spend my full time hours working in the DEI space. Of course, there were no DEI roles at the time at the UK level. And so I just kept pestering leaders until something was created and I was able to slide into that role. So it took a little bit of time and a little bit of searching to figure out what exactly it was I wanted to do, but it was really worth it in the end. As I was there over the few years that I was in that role, I went from being the only person really looking at DEI to there being lots of different DEI teams, DEI initiatives. It got a little messy at the end, and I think it's one of the reasons why I decided to leave because there was no clear structure or path that the organization wanted to go in as a collective.
Let's just talk a little bit about those early days of when you were setting up Empower and day one diaries. What did it feel like? What did you have to do when you got started?
Gosh, it's I mean, I've done an MBA. In theory, I know how to run a business to some extent, right? But you don't really know it until you're in it. And there's so much admin involved that you have no idea about, right? It's the legal requirements of actually setting up the business and the insurance and the accountancy. And that was the biggest challenge, I think, for me in the beginning is figuring out what had to be on that to-do list.
Yeah.
And I was able to tap into some free resources that are based out of Edinburgh, specifically for people starting businesses, which was really helpful. Um, but even with that, it was a bit of trial and error. It was sort of suddenly realizing that you probably should have done something 3 months ago that you haven't done yet and scrambling to figure out what that is and how to do it. I think there's a lot of that that goes on in the beginning.
Yeah, I can Absolutely. I remember the first thing that the first kind of paid gig that I got, and they're like, "Just give us the details to send the invoice." And I was like, "Okay, how to set up a company," and just like trying to put them off until I had a viable entity that they could actually send an invoice to. And you're right, there is so much of that, and especially when you work at a big company like Amazon as you were, or Google as I was, there's just so much that is hidden. You just don't need to see the admin, how the sausage is made in terms of the organization, the company, and decisions like that. That when you do it yourself, you're like, oh, okay, guess I have to make that decision. What plans did you put in place? How did you set yourself up for success in terms of financially, in terms of support structures, etc.?
So I did have a financial runway that allowed me to be comfortable and live for about a year, which was phenomenal. And that's something that not everybody is going to have access to. I was really lucky in that. Um, I think from a networking perspective, I was so accustomed to just networking internally with Amazon and at the corporate level that I really wanted to find other ways of connecting with people. So I did a lot of networking locally in Edinburgh, which is something I hadn't done before, and trying to find other online networks with people who were stepping away from corporate jobs, trying to build portfolio careers in sort of the the very beginning stages of building businesses, and that was a really interesting space. The other space that I looked at from a networking perspective was being a board non-executive director on a board, which I am a director for a couple of companies as well. And I think that also has been a phenomenal networking opportunity. I think it took some time. And I was exhausted when I left Amazon. It took me some time as well to sort of reset myself and how I wanted to approach work differently and approach that work life balance differently. Um, so it wasn't completely planned out. I had some things figured out, which was great, but a lot of it was trial and error and just sort of bumbling along until something worked. Right.
And that time that you said it took to decompress from working
Mhm.
in a place like Amazon again, I've definitely found that when I left Google. It you know, I was there for 13 years, so I just lived and breathed it for so long, and everything that it provides becomes the world around you. And so it takes some time to again rewire yourself to think I those things are important. Those things are internal. Those things are the mask that I need to put on when I work at a corporate. So l- understanding that was took a while and does really need that decompress time. As you were stepping into that phase and as you were starting the business, did you have an opportunity? Did you learn anything new about yourself as you were getting into this?
I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I had a very specific understanding of what success looked like that I needed to shift.
Mm.
I learned that I had a nervous system that was overloaded and I needed to figure out how to reassess how I interacted with work and life to make that better. And I learned that I have ADHD. And that was something that I think came across as I started to unmask that corporate face, right? That constant fight or flight experience that you are when you're in a corporate environment that's super fast paced. Your nervous system is really overloaded and overwhelmed all the time. Um, and that allows you to ignore a lot of other things that are going on internally. And as I was coming out of that and really refining who I am and how I want to interact with the world, the ADHD symptoms started to bubble up. And it's something that is in my family. Both of my siblings were late diagnosed with it. My father's been diagnosed with it. So it's not something that's unnaturally likely for me to have, but it's something that I have my whole life been able to mask so much that nobody really noticed any of those symptoms. And it wasn't until I really calmed down that those things bubbled up.
Yeah, wow. And as you took that on then through building out Empower, did you find yourself adjusting your expectations or how you went about things knowing the about the ADHD?
Absolutely. I've very much adjusted my expectations of capacity and productivity. Um, I think we expect a lot out of ourselves that is often unrealistic. And so I've definitely shifted how I think about that and how I think about the to-do list and whether or not I'm getting everything on the to-do list done all the time. I specifically went for a portfolio career because I knew that my brain likes to do lots of different things all at once. And that's been really successful for me. I think if I were focused on just a single thing all the time, I would a rabbit hole down rabbit holes I don't need to go down. And so this keeps me from going down too many of those. And I get bored over time. Whereas by working across several different organizations and doing lots of different things, I'm giving my brain enough interesting opportunities that it feels satiated in that way. And then I have lots of coping mechanisms around me from the tools that I use to like the paper diary that I use to the number of hours I work a day or the number of days I work a week. So there's been a lot of shifts and trial and error to figure out what works. But it's been a fun learning process.
Good, good. It's fantastic that you've been able to recognize and put in those tools and processes, and it does sound like that would have been very difficult
Mhm.
in a corporate environment. So it sounds like you, as you say, the sort of the structure as well as the pace of the work that you're doing allowed you to get a lot more in touch and control of that. How did you find then that balance of getting the admin stuff done with also trying to focus on what is the actual business and how is this going to work or make money or what are we going to offer to the world?
I think the initial stages were really just reaching out and talking to people. I tried to go to as many networking events as I could. I tried to strike up sort of market research conversations. I found people were really willing to talk about themselves and what they're doing if they didn't think there was a sale involved, which is quite handy because you do end up generating leads that way that you can reach out to later. But the
Yeah.
market research calls were really great. And I think a lot of it too was acknowledging that I can't do everything all at once. And that I think takes a little bit of time to recognize and figure out what it is that you want or need to be doing and what you can put aside for a little while. But there's been a bit of a waffling back and forth between trying to build out contracts and clients and opportunities versus trying to build out content and actually delivering against the service that you said you're going to sell to somebody. And so you do kind of go back and forth on that. You can't be juggling all those balls at once. And I think that's it's definitely a hindrance from running quickly, but it's a good thing to recognize early on and to just sit in and be comfortable with.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I really that really resonates with me because I find there's this constant sort of tension or nervousness that you're not doing enough for
mm,
that once you've thought of an idea, something you could do, someone you could pitch an idea to, someone you could collaborate with, there's this like, oh, I had that idea and now I haven't done it. And there's this like tension and nervousness that I should have got more done. I should have got more done until you do actually look at it. And like you say, you can't do everything at the same time. And so being able to get comfortable with yourself, being like, okay, I can only do what I can do and move along with that, I think is a key part of starting a new business like that. So this is always something I found really interesting about the business setup that you have. Because I like you've got a lot to do and some big clients,
mhm.
but you haven't chosen to take on any staff full time, rather use freelancers who are sort of interested in the space. Can you talk about the decisioning that took or where you are with that at the moment?
Yeah. So one of the reasons I went down, there are a couple of reasons I went down that route. One was financial. I couldn't afford full-time staff
Fair enough.
in the beginning. Like that's just not reasonable. And freelance staff is much more accessible. It can grow and shift as your business shifts, and it gives you a lot more flexibility over time. Um, the other thing that I really wanted to ensure was that the content that we were building was made for employee network leaders by employee network leaders. So I specifically want to work with other people who have run employee networks in the past, who understand that experience, who can bring real expertise to the table and to the program and the content. It also means that I'm giving an opportunity to people who have done that volunteer work because I think there's something really important about acknowledging the effort that goes into that work and ensuring people who have done that work are getting something in return for it. And this is another way for other people who have worked in the employee network space, have either moved on from that, started their own businesses, want to do something a little bit extra on the side, who can really lean into and bring that to life for other employee network leaders and share their knowledge. And one of the hardest things about being an employee network leader is you feel like you're isolated and in a silo and you don't get to learn from others who have been there before you. So this is a way to pass on that information. So it was absolutely the right decision for a handful of reasons. It does come with pros and cons. But I think that for now, and I would imagine for quite a while, it will still be the right um, way to manage the business.
And what are the pros you sort of mentioned? What are the
Mm.
drawbacks of that structure?
Well, I think from a timing perspective and an accountability perspective, that can be challenging. Um, People are working on other things. Deadlines aren't as demanding or don't seem as important to freelancers as they would to full-time employees. You have to be willing to flex your own timeline and to work with what you're getting rather
Mm,
than having a strict this is the plan and you must stick to it because that's just not going to happen with freelancers. There's holiday, there's other work, there's all sorts of things that come in play.
yeah.
Um,
So you can't yell at anyone basically.
you can't yell at anyone, which sometimes I'd like to, but you can't, and that's fine. And I accept that. Um, I think the other thing is sort of the type of work that's done because people aren't working collectively as a team. So there are
Mm,
lots of different voices, perspectives, opinions, and that's great from a diversity perspective, but you also want to build something that feels cohesive. And because there's not that collective working and that learning together, there is a lot of work that I feel I have to do sort of on top of the work that's delivered to align it to a voice, to bring it together. So I still end up doing a fair bit of the implementation work and the finessing, but
mm.
I am bringing in information and expertise from people who have different experiences than mine, and can offer other voices to the conversation, which I think is really valuable.
Yeah, yeah. And what I think is also like knowing the network that you've built, and I'm curious about how you sourced those people, because what I see is uh, people who are good at individual things. You've got great content providers, facilitators, people who are into events and planning, people who are into data and analytics. But the common thread is their interest and experience in the employee network, ERG, in leading those. So, how have you sourced the people of such varied skills who are all into this topic?
Honestly, it's been entirely based on networking. It's been people that I connected with on LinkedIn ages ago who suddenly popped up and said they were starting their own business. And so I reached out to be like, oh, that's so cool. I'm just doing that as well. Let's chat. Um, there have been people that I've been connected to through other people that I've met through networking. I've been really lucky, I think, in who I've connected with and how easy it's been to find those people. I do think at some point I need to do a larger push and do something that's a bit more formal to bring in additional voices and expertise, which is something I'll be looking at doing hopefully early next year. But I think so far I've been really lucky. It's been really easy, and I think the amount of time that I spent doing virtual and in-person networking events and participating in programs and just talking to people in the first 6 to 12 months of the business really paid off from that perspective.
When you look back at your time in Amazon and at other companies,
Mhm.
is there anything that you wish that you'd spent more time doing?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Um, yes, I wish I had spent more time on personal brand. I think you get so wrapped up in the internal stuff that you're doing at the company level and trying to have an impact there and sort of prove yourself in that space that you forget that there will be something after that and you need to build up your own platform, especially in this world of social media where everybody has an online presence of some sort or another. I think the personal brand and feeling comfortable engaging in that space is really important, and that's something that I did not prioritize
Mm,
previously, and something I'm still trying to figure out how to do. for myself and for my business. Take some time, I think, to get used to the whole LinkedIn thing and feeling
Yeah.
comfortable. And LinkedIn, I have some feelings about, but I think overall that is something that I wish I had done earlier on, because it would have given me a platform to jump off of, that I instead I've had to start to build, as I've also been building a business, and that's a lot of work to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. I would agree with that. No, not you as such, but yeah, I would agree. I'm similar. I think I really wish I had just got into the practice of posting on LinkedIn uh, more regularly and just with updates. And I think there's, like you say, you get wrapped up in the internal stuff, and also everyone around you is very good at what you are doing, and so it doesn't feel like you know anything different or special. And so it's only when you do actually put something on LinkedIn, or you do get out of those worlds and realize that, oh, people from who don't work in that space actually really respect that, or are very interested in it, or would like to hear or learn about those things. And so I think you kind of get sucked into the world that everyone knows this, so there's nothing interesting I
Yeah.
could say here. I think that's an interesting one. The other one that I think you it sounds like you did a good job of is getting a variety of experience,
Yes.
moving through the departments, which I think sounds like helped set you up for understanding how do teams work, how do sales teams work, what does that look like, and then when you were able to put the DEI lens on it, it gave you a better view of like, hey, you now know what how to consult on this because you know how they're trying companies are trying to set up their business and what they're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. I think one of the things when I mentored people coming into Amazon, that I always said was use it, right? It's going to use you. It's a company. That's what companies do. They use people as assets and resources, and then they discard them when they need to shift mindsets or focus or whatever. So you in turn need to use the organization that you're working for your own advantage. You need to understand what it is you want to get out of that experience. And that could be experience in a certain industry, in a certain role. It could be getting to a next level so that you can get like move up into another company. Um, there's some sort of skill set or experience that you should be focused on getting, and that will then give you something back for the work that you're doing rather than it just being that immediate what's on your to-do list, right? Because we get so focused on the here and now and we forget again what potentially could come after this.
Yeah.
So I did try to do that, and that happened with my vertical shifts that I did, and with the um, sorry, my horizontal shifts that I did, and with the vertical shifts that I did as well. And it really was about what skill sets can I learn, and then what skill sets have I learned that I didn't necessarily think I was going to learn or weren't looking for. How do I capitalize on those? How do I make sure I don't lose those? What can I do with those now that I have them? So there was a lot of introspection and thinking about what do I want, what do I need, what can I use, and how do I get it? And I think that mindset really helped.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's really useful as you step into the business world. Just looking back now at the first couple of years of your time in Empower, and since you've launched the business, anything? Did you make any mistakes or decisions that you think you would do differently
Hmm,
now?
that's also a really good question. Um, I try not to have regrets. Generally, everything is something you learn from. So I don't know that I would do anything specifically, like nothing huge comes to mind. I do think that focusing more on building up the external presence at the beginning rather than being so focused on the internal product would have been helpful. Um, I'm a perfectionist at heart, and so I wanted to make sure that what I was producing was phenomenal and exactly what it needed to be. And you can go down a lot of rabbit holes with that, but you don't necessarily need to go down right away. And so
Yeah,
I definitely fell into that trap in the beginning, and I still fall into it all the time. It's just the way my brain works. So it's constantly about reminding myself to look externally instead of internally at the business and what's going on. Um, I think that's a lesson I'm still trying to learn for myself.
yeah. And looking at the business now, what are the key things you're trying to do with the business as you look from here on out through the rest of this year and on into next year?
So we're doing a couple of things right now. We're iterating based on feedback that we've gotten, which is, I mean, you always want to continue to grow and iterate and make sure you're doing the right things. So we're trying to add in more personal coaching and some other components that I think will be really great. And that's just based off of feedback that we've gotten from our participants in the program and the organizations that we've worked with. The other thing is scale. We've had a good baseline of clients to start to get that feedback and really test out the product and the program. And now it's about, okay, we've got something that we think is working. We're iterating on it a little bit. We're still playing with a few different variations, but let's bring that bigger. Let's make sure that we're building that out to a broader community and making sure that more people have access to the services that we offer.
Seisha, the question that I ask everyone on this podcast, you had a nice, comfortable, successful career at Amazon, and you could have bathed in the warm glow of their lovely share prices for another extended period, but you decided to make the jump into your own world. Are you happy you made that jump? Would you do it again?
100% thrilled, 100% would do it again, 100% recommend it to everybody. It is challenging. You have to change the way that your brain thinks and what you think is success and how your nervous system reacts with work. I think when you're in these high pressured environments all the time, you approach life and work in a very different way, and probably an unhealthy way. And so taking a step back and rethinking all of that has been really phenomenal for my own well-being. And I have seen that with others as well. You're able to slow down a little bit, take a step back, redefine what your values are and how you want to operate. Financially, it can be a little scary. Uh, there's there's no doubt about that. But the experiences that I've had so far and that I know that I will continue to have are absolutely worth that. And the more you care about something and the more you're intentional, I think, about what you do, the more likely you are to be successful in that. And again, it's about reaching out to people. It's about trying to do things not on your own. And it's about just listening and understanding what people's experiences and challenges are, and then seeing if you can help them with those things.
Nice one. I wish you best of luck, first of all. I've again seen really up close the amazing work that Empower does. I think for you in particular, Seisha, one of the most interesting and impressive things is that networking piece that you talk about, because you're not a showy networker. Like, you're not going to be the one all over LinkedIn saying, I'm so happy to announce that X and Y great success. It's not that, but you're quite intentional, I think, is a word we've used a few times, but you're you do choose the people you want to talk to, and then you also make use of pretty much all of those conversations towards growing new clients, towards growing the business, towards making a new offering, etc. And I think that's something that a lot of people listen to the podcast can learn a lot from. That it doesn't need to be all about making a great show of it, but it's about being clear about who you need to talk to and how we can work together. But with that, we'll say a massive thank you to Ceysa McKechnie. It's been really, really great to talk to you and to work with you over this last few months as well. And look forward to chatting to you again soon.
It's been lovely. Thank you so much for having me, Brian.